In a forgotten small town, the story of elderly Evelyn and her orphaned grandson Caleb, who struggle with the hardships of life, begins. Caleb dreams of becoming a pilot, fascinated by the jets in the sky. But Evelyn opposes this dangerous dream. Evelyn sees Caleb's determination and decides to support his dream. Despite experiencing setbacks in his rigorous military training, Caleb continues on his path with love and sacrifice. Caleb faces the harsh realities of war. Evelyn gives him strength with her prayers and letters. The moments when he comes face to face with death strengthen their bond even more. After the war, Caleb returns home safely. He and Evelyn have an emotional reunion, and together they heal the wounds of the past and launch a new aviation program that will give hope to the town's young people.
Hello, my dear friends. I am with you in this video with a new story.
The town of Harmony, nestled deep in the heartland, was a place time seemed to have forgotten. Fields stretched out, their bounty meager, reflecting the hard-scrabble existence of its inhabitants. Houses stood weathered and worn, each bearing the silent testimony of generations who had toiled and dreamed within their walls. Opportunities were as scarce as rain in a drought, and hope often felt like a distant memory. Evelyn, a woman etched with the stories of 80 years, moved through this landscape like a weathered oak. Her hands, gnarled and strong, were a testament to years of relentless labor. Each morning, before the sun peeked over the horizon, she was already tending to the farm, her movements deliberate and efficient. The farm was a small patch of land, but it was her sanctuary, her burden, and her legacy. It was all she had left. The lines on her face deepened as she surveyed her land, each furrow a reminder of past losses. Her husband, taken too soon by a farming accident. Her daughter-in-law, succumbing to illness, leaving behind a void that echoed through the years. And then her son, lost in a car crash, leaving her with Caleb, a bright-eyed boy who became her sole reason for persevering. Caleb. The name brought a flicker of warmth to Evelyn's heart. He was the spark in her twilight years, the promise of a future she could only dream of. He possessed a spirit that soared beyond the confines of Harmony, a spirit she both cherished and feared. One afternoon, as the sun painted the sky in hues of orange and gold, Caleb lay sprawled in the grass, his gaze fixed upwards. Evelyn watched him from the porch, a cup of lukewarm coffee in her hands. He was a picture of youthful exuberance, his limbs long and lean, his eyes filled with an insatiable curiosity. Suddenly, a roar shattered the afternoon calm. A jet screamed across the sky, leaving a trail of white in its wake. Caleb shot up, his eyes wide with wonder. "Grandma, did you see that? Did you see it?" Evelyn sighed, a familiar pang of apprehension gripping her heart. "Yes, Caleb, I saw it. Just another plane." "It's not just another plane, Grandma," Caleb insisted, his voice brimming with excitement. "It's a fighter jet. Imagine flying that high, that fast, soaring through the clouds like a bird." Evelyn's grip tightened on her cup. She knew what was coming. She had seen this longing in his eyes before, a yearning for something beyond the boundaries of their small town. "Caleb," she said softly, "the farm needs you. We need you. This land is our life." Caleb's face fell. "But Grandma, I don't want to just farm. I want to be more. I want to fly." "Fly?" Evelyn scoffed, the word laced with a bitterness she couldn't quite suppress. "Flying is for dreamers, Caleb. We are not dreamers. We're survivors. We work the land. We make do. We survive. She carried the weight of her experiences, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the futility of chasing dreams. Her husband's ambition to expand the farm, cut short by tragedy. Her son's desire to leave Harmony, ending in a senseless accident. These memories were etched into her soul, shaping her protective nature and fueling her resistance to Caleb's aspirations. Evelyn remembered a time, long ago, when she too had harbored dreams. She had envisioned a life beyond the farm, a life filled with adventure and excitement. But life had a way of crushing dreams, of grounding you in the harsh reality of survival. The memory flashed in her mind, sharp and painful. She was a young woman, barely out of her teens, her eyes sparkling with hope. She and Thomas, her beloved husband, stood hand in hand, gazing at their small farm. Thomas had big plans. He wanted to expand, to buy more land, to build a bigger house. He dreamed of a prosperous future, a future filled with abundance and joy. One day, Thomas decided to take a shortcut across a neighbor's field, driving his tractor through unfamiliar terrain. The ground gave way, and the tractor overturned, trapping him beneath its weight. Evelyn arrived too late. She watched helplessly as the life drained from his eyes, his dreams buried beneath the unforgiving earth. The loss had shattered her, leaving her with a deep-seated fear of chasing dreams, of tempting fate. It was a lesson she had carried with her ever since, a lesson she desperately wanted to impart to Caleb. "Grandma," Caleb's voice broke through her reverie. "Flying isn't just a dream. It's a calling. I feel it in my bones. I have to try." Evelyn looked into his eyes, and she saw not just a boy with a fleeting fancy, but a young man with a burning passion. She saw a reflection of her own youthful spirit, a spirit she had tried so hard to bury. "But it's dangerous, Caleb," she pleaded, her voice laced with worry. "What if something happens to you? What will I do? Grandma, I'll be careful, I promise. But I can't stay here, just existing. I need to fly. I need to see the world." He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. "Please, Grandma, just let me try." His words resonated deep within her, stirring something she thought had long been extinguished. She saw in his eyes the same unwavering determination that had once burned within her own heart. She saw the potential for a life beyond the confines of Harmony, a life filled with purpose and passion. Evelyn closed her eyes, wrestling with her fears, her doubts, her ingrained beliefs. She thought of the sacrifices she had made, the hardships she had endured, all for Caleb's sake. And she realized that true love meant letting go, allowing him to pursue his own path, even if it meant facing her greatest fears. Finally, she opened her eyes, her gaze meeting Caleb's. "All right, Caleb," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "You want to fly? Then I'll help you fly." A wave of relief washed over Caleb's face, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Really, Grandma?" "You mean it?" Evelyn nodded, a faint smile gracing her lips. "I mean it. But it won't be easy. It will take hard work, dedication, and sacrifice. Are you ready for that?" "I'm ready for anything, Grandma," Caleb declared, his voice filled with unwavering determination. "I won't let you down." Evelyn knew that supporting Caleb's dream would mean facing her own demons, confronting her deepest fears. It would mean sacrificing everything she had, everything she held dear. But as she looked into his bright, hopeful eyes, she knew she couldn't deny him this chance. She couldn't condemn him to a life of quiet desperation, a life of unfulfilled dreams. She reached out and took his hand, her gnarled fingers intertwining with his youthful ones. "Then let's get started," she said, her voice filled with a newfound resolve. "Let's see if we can turn this farm boy into a pilot." The decision made, a sense of peace settled over Evelyn. The fear hadn't vanished completely, but it was now accompanied by a sense of hope, a belief in Caleb's potential, and a renewed sense of purpose in her own life. She would do everything in her power to help him achieve his dream, even if it meant facing her worst nightmares. For in Caleb's aspirations, she saw not just a chance for him to escape harmony, but a chance for her to finally break free from the shackles of her past. Evelyn watched the bus carrying Caleb disappear down the dusty road, a lump forming in her throat that had nothing to do with the morning chill. Harmony felt emptier than ever, the silence amplifying the absence of his youthful energy. She knew this was what he wanted, what she now wanted for him, but that didn't make it any easier. He was off to the military base, a world away from the worn fields and weathered fences of their farm, a world where he would learn to fly. The first few weeks were a blur of activity for Evelyn. With Caleb gone, the farm work fell squarely on her aging shoulders. Each sunrise found her tending to the crops, mending fences, and feeding the livestock, her movements slower, more deliberate than before. The ache in her joints was a constant companion, a reminder of the years of hard labor etched into her bones. But with every task completed, she felt a surge of purpose. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about fueling Caleb's dreams. She remembered the day she found the worn leather jacket tucked away in the attic, her late husband's. It was a relic from his own youthful dreams of flying, dreams that were curtailed by the realities of life on the farm. She had initially resented that jacket, a symbol of aspirations left unfulfilled. But now, holding it in her hands, she felt a shift in her perspective. It was a symbol of hope, of the courage to reach for something beyond the horizon. She carefully packed it away to send to Caleb, hoping it would bring him luck and remind him of her unwavering support. News from Caleb was sporadic at first, short, hurried letters filled with descriptions of grueling physical training, complex aircraft manuals, and the intimidating presence of seasoned instructors. He wrote of early mornings, late nights, and the constant pressure to perform. Evelyn read each word with a mixture of pride and concern, imagining him pushing himself to the limit, striving to excel. One letter in particular stood out. Caleb confessed to struggling with the simulations, his initial confidence shaken by a series of near disasters. "Grandma," he wrote, "I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Everyone else seems to get it so easily. Maybe I was wrong about myself." Evelyn felt a pang of empathy. She knew that feeling of self-doubt, the fear of failure that gnawed at the edges of ambition. She sat down at her worn kitchen table, the scent of freshly baked bread filling the air, and penned a reply. She didn't sugarcoat the truth. She acknowledged the challenges he faced. But she also reminded him of his strength, his resilience, and the unwavering belief she had in him. "Caleb," she wrote, "life ain't easy, and dreams don't come free. There'll be times when you stumble, when you question everything. But that's when you gotta dig deep, remember why you started, and keep pushing forward. You got the heart of a lion, boy. Don't let a few clouds scare you away from the sun." She enclosed a small, hand-carved wooden bird, a memento from his childhood, hoping it would bring him comfort and remind him of home. Meanwhile, the financial strain of supporting Caleb's training was beginning to take its toll. The farm yielded just enough to keep them afloat, but flight school was expensive. Evelyn knew she had to make a difficult decision. After weeks of agonizing, she decided to sell her grandmother's locket, a delicate piece of jewelry passed down through generations. It was her most prized possession, a tangible link to her family's history. The day she handed it over to the jeweler, a wave of sadness washed over her. It felt like she was giving away a piece of herself. But as she walked away, the image of Caleb soaring through the sky filled her mind, and she knew she had made the right choice. With renewed determination, Caleb threw himself back into his training. He spent hours poring over manuals, practicing simulations, and seeking guidance from his instructors. Slowly but surely, his confidence began to return. He learned to anticipate the challenges, to react quickly and decisively, and to trust his instincts. Letters from Caleb became more frequent, filled with descriptions of successful training flights, daring maneuvers, and the camaraderie he shared with his fellow cadets. He spoke of the thrill of soaring through the sky, the power of commanding a machine that defied gravity, and the satisfaction of mastering a complex skill. "Grandma, flying is everything I dreamed it would be. It's like the whole world is spread out beneath me, and I'm finally free." Evelyn cherished each letter, reading them over and over again, imagining him high above the clouds, finally living his dream. Her heart swelled with pride, knowing that her sacrifices had helped him reach for the stars. The day Caleb called to tell her he was graduating from flight school, Evelyn could barely contain her excitement. She booked a bus ticket immediately, determined to witness this momentous occasion firsthand. The military base was a world away from harmony. Gleaming aircraft lined the tarmac, their powerful engines humming with anticipation. Uniformed officers strode purposefully across the grounds, their faces etched with discipline and determination. Evelyn felt a little out of place in her simple dress and worn shoes, but her heart swelled with pride as she watched Caleb march proudly across the parade ground. When he spotted her in the crowd, his face lit up with a radiant smile. After the ceremony, he rushed over to embrace her, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Grandma, I couldn't have done it without you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." Evelyn squeezed his hand tightly, her heart overflowing with love. "You always had it in you, Caleb," she said. "I just gave you a little nudge." As they stood there, watching the jets take off into the clear blue sky, Evelyn knew that she had done more than just give him a nudge. She had given him the wings to fly. She had given him the courage to chase his dreams, no matter how impossible they seemed. And in doing so, she had found a renewed sense of purpose in her own life, a reason to keep going, to keep believing in the power of hope. The farm, once a symbol of her hardship, now represented the strength and love that had allowed Caleb to reach for the sky. The roar of the jet engines was a different beast now. It wasn't the exhilarating sound of freedom Caleb had chased in flight school. It was a guttural cry, a mechanical scream mirroring the fear that clawed at his insides. The sky wasn't a canvas for dreams anymore. It was a battleground painted with smoke and fire. This was war. Deployed to a dusty, sun-baked airbase, a world away from harmony, Caleb felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his young shoulders. Gone were the simulations and the instructors. Now, every flight was real, every decision a matter of life and death. His training had prepared him, but nothing could have truly braced him for the sheer, brutal reality of combat. Back in harmony, Evelyn's days were now punctuated by a gnawing anxiety she couldn't shake. The rhythmic creak of the rocking chair on the porch, once a soothing sound, now echoed the frantic beat of her heart. She found herself attending church more often, seeking solace in the familiar hymns and the comforting presence of the community. Each prayer was a whispered plea for Caleb's safety, a fragile shield against the unknown horrors he faced. She reread his letters countless times, tracing the lines with her calloused fingers, trying to glean some reassurance from his carefully chosen words. He wrote of the camaraderie among the pilots, the thrill of flying, and the beauty of the foreign landscapes seen from above. But Evelyn, with a lifetime of hardship etched into her soul, could read between the lines. She sensed the underlying tension, the unspoken fear that he tried so hard to mask. Caleb's missions were a blur of adrenaline and calculated risk. He flew sorties over enemy territory, his senses heightened, his reflexes honed to a razor's edge. He witnessed the devastation of war firsthand, the bombed-out villages, the displaced families, the vacant stares of the innocent caught in the crossfire. The romantic notions he once held about being a pilot were shattered, replaced by a grim understanding of the cost of conflict. One sweltering afternoon, after a particularly harrowing mission, Caleb sat on the edge of his cot, the dust of the desert clinging to his skin. He unfolded a fresh letter from Evelyn, the familiar scent of her lavender soap, a comforting balm to his weary spirit. "My dearest Caleb," she wrote, her words shaky yet resolute. "I know this must be a difficult time for you, and I worry about you every moment of every day, but I also know the strength that lies within you. Remember why you wanted to fly. Remember the dream that burned so brightly in your heart. Don't let the darkness dim that light. And remember, no matter what happens, you are loved. Come home to me safely, son." Her words were a lifeline, a reminder of the simple, enduring love that anchored him to the world. He closed his eyes, picturing her weathered face, the gentle crinkle around her eyes when she smiled. He had to come home to her. He owed it to her, to himself, to the dream they had both fought so hard to achieve. But the war had a way of testing even the strongest resolve. One fateful morning, during a routine patrol, Caleb's jet was struck by enemy fire. The cockpit filled with smoke, alarms blared, and the controls went haywire. He fought to maintain control, his training kicking in despite the surge of panic. He managed to eject just moments before the jet exploded in a fiery inferno, the force of the ejection knocking him unconscious. He awoke in a field hospital, his body battered and bruised, his mind reeling from the near-death experience. The doctor told him he was lucky to be alive. Shrapnel had narrowly missed vital organs, and he had suffered a concussion. As he lay there, staring at the sterile white ceiling, he was overwhelmed by a profound sense of his own mortality. He thought of Evelyn, of her unwavering faith, and the sacrifices she had made for him. What would she do if he didn't come home? The thought was unbearable. He had to get back to her. As he recovered, Caleb found himself questioning the very purpose of his mission. He had witnessed too much suffering, too much senseless violence. The thrill of flying had been replaced by a deep unease, a moral conflict that gnawed at his conscience. He remembered the faces of the children he had seen in the bombed-out villages, their eyes filled with fear and confusion. Was this the dream he had so desperately pursued? Was this the life he wanted to live? One evening, sitting on the edge of the hospital roof, watching the sun sink below the horizon, Caleb met a fellow soldier, a medic named Sarah. She was young, barely older than him, but her eyes held a weariness that belied her age. They talked for hours, sharing their fears and doubts, their hopes and dreams. Sarah told him about her work, tending to the wounded and comforting the dying. She spoke of the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to find hope even in the darkest of times. Sometimes, she said, her voice soft but firm, the greatest act of courage is not fighting, but choosing to heal, choosing to rebuild, choosing to find a better way. Her words resonated deeply within Caleb. He realized that his dream didn't have to be defined by war and destruction. He could use his skills, his experiences, to make a positive impact on the world. He could honor Evelyn's sacrifices by living a life of purpose and meaning. He wrote to Evelyn, pouring out his heart, sharing his doubts and his newfound resolve. He told her about Sarah, about the wounded soldiers he had met, about the children he had seen. He told her that he was still a pilot, but he wanted to be a different kind of pilot, a pilot who used his wings to build bridges, not to tear them down. Evelyn's reply came weeks later, her familiar handwriting a beacon of hope in the midst of his turmoil. "My dearest Caleb," she wrote, "I have always known that you had a good heart. War changes people, but it doesn't have to break them. I am proud of you for questioning, for seeking a better path. Follow your heart, Caleb. It will lead you home." Her words gave him the strength he needed to face the future. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but he was no longer afraid. He had a purpose, a mission to fulfill. He would return to Harmony, not just as a pilot, but as a man transformed by the fires of war, a man determined to make a difference in the world, a man ready to honor the sacrifices of the woman who had given him everything. The dust swirled around the tires of the old Jeep as Caleb pulled into the driveway. The familiar creak of the gate, the scent of sun-baked earth and blooming honeysuckle, it all washed over him, a soothing balm to the soul scarred by the harsh realities of war. He cut the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the chirping of crickets and the distant lowing of cattle. He took a deep breath, the air here cleaner, somehow sweeter than anywhere else in the world. This was her home. Evelyn was waiting on the porch, her figure silhouetted against the warm glow of the setting sun. Her hands, gnarled and weathered from years of toil, were clasped tightly in front of her. As he drew closer, he saw the worry lines etched deep around her eyes, lines that seemed to have multiplied during his absence. But as she saw him, really saw him, those lines softened, replaced by a smile that radiated pure, unadulterated joy. "Caleb," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. He rushed forward, engulfing her in a hug. He held her tight, feeling the familiar fragility of her frame, the strength that belied it. "I'm home, Evelyn. I'm really home." The relief that flooded her was palpable. She clung to him, tears silently streaming down her face. "Thank God you're safe." Thank God they stood there for a long moment, simply holding each other, the unspoken words of love and gratitude passing between them. Finally, Evelyn stepped back, wiping her eyes with the corner of her apron. "Come on, let's get you inside." I've got a pot of stew simmering, just like you like it." Inside, the familiar scent of simmering stew filled the small farmhouse. Everything was just as he remembered it. The worn floral wallpaper, the crocheted doilies on the armrests of the old sofa, the antique clock ticking steadily on the mantelpiece. It was a sanctuary, a world away from the sterile metal and concrete of the airbase, the deafening roar of jet engines, the constant threat of danger. As he ate, Evelyn watched him, her eyes never leaving his face. She didn't pry, didn't ask about the horrors he had witnessed. She simply offered her presence, her unwavering love, a silent reassurance. Later, as they sat on the porch, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight, Caleb finally spoke. "It's good to be back, Evelyn. More than you know." Evelyn nodded, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "I know, Caleb, I know." He hesitated, then continued. "I saw things over there, things that changed me. Things I'll never forget." "War changes everyone, Caleb," Evelyn said softly. "The important thing is to learn from it, to let it make you stronger, not break you." He looked at her, seeing the wisdom etched in her face, the resilience that had carried her through so much hardship. "You were right, you know, about a lot of things. Flying, it's not always what I thought it would be." "But you did it," she said, her voice filled with pride. "You achieved your dream." "I did," he agreed, "but it's not just my dream anymore, Evelyn. It's ours. And I want to do something with it, something that matters." The next morning, Caleb insisted on helping Evelyn with the farm chores. He milked the cows, mended fences, and tilled the soil, his hands calloused and strong. It was hard work, but it was honest work, grounding him in a way that flying never could. As they worked side by side, Caleb began to understand the true extent of Evelyn's sacrifices. He saw the years of hardship etched in every line of her face, in every movement of her body. He realized that she had given up everything for him, her own dreams buried beneath the weight of responsibility and loss. That afternoon, Caleb drove Evelyn to the highest point on the farm, a hill overlooking the town. He parked the jeep, and they sat in silence for a while, watching the wind ripple through the fields of golden wheat. "This is where it started, isn't it?" Caleb said, gesturing to the landscape. "This farm, this town, this is where I first dreamed of flying." Evelyn nodded. "You always had your head in the clouds, Caleb." "I wanted to escape," he admitted. "I wanted to get away from the poverty, the hardship. I thought flying was the answer." "And was it?" Evelyn asked gently. Caleb paused, considering her question. "It was part of the answer," he said finally. "It showed me what I was capable of, what I could achieve, but it also showed me what really matters." He turned to Evelyn, taking her hand in his. "You matter, Evelyn. This farm matters. This town matters. This is my home, and I'm not going anywhere." A tear trickled down Evelyn's cheek. "Oh, Caleb," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Caleb smiled, wiping away her tear with his thumb. "I was thinking, maybe we could fix up the old barn, turn it into a workshop. I could teach the kids in town about aviation, about engineering, show them that there's more to life than just this farm, but that this farm is something to be proud of." Evelyn's eyes lit up. "That's a wonderful idea, Caleb. A real wonderful idea." And so, Caleb began to rebuild, not just the barn, but the town itself. He used his connections from the military to secure funding for a new community center, a library, and a small airfield on the outskirts of town. He started an aviation program for the youth, teaching them about aerodynamics, navigation, and the principles of flight. He told them about his experiences in the war, not glorifying the violence, but emphasizing the importance of peace, of understanding, of using their skills to build a better world. He inspired them to dream big, to believe in themselves, to never give up on their aspirations. Caleb also used his pilot skills to help the town in practical ways. He flew medical supplies to remote areas, transported patients to hospitals in the city, and even helped local farmers by surveying their fields from the air. Harmony was no longer a forgotten town. It was a place of hope, of opportunity, of dreams taking flight. And at the heart of it all was Evelyn, the woman who had sacrificed everything to make it possible. One sunny afternoon, Caleb took Evelyn for a ride in a small vintage biplane he had restored. They soared above the fields, the wind whipping through their hair, the sun warming their faces. As they flew over the farm, Caleb pointed down to the fields below. "Look, Evelyn," he said, his voice filled with pride. "Look at what we've done." Evelyn gazed down at the patchwork of fields, the tidy rows of crops, the bustling activity in the town. She saw the children playing in the park, the farmers tending their land, the airplanes taking off from the airfield. She saw the fruits of their labor, the realization of their dreams. "It's beautiful, Caleb," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's more beautiful than I ever imagined." As they circled back towards the airfield, Caleb banked the plane, giving Evelyn a panoramic view of the town. He looked at her, seeing the joy in her eyes, the peace in her smile. "Thank you, Evelyn," he said, his voice barely audible above the roar of the engine. "Thank you for everything." Evelyn squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with tears. "You did it, Caleb," she said. "You made your dream come true." Caleb smiled. "We did it, Evelyn," he corrected. "We did it together." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the land. As they landed the plane, Caleb knew that he had finally come home. He had found his purpose, not in the skies above, but in the earth beneath his feet, in the love of his grandmother, in the community he had helped to rebuild. He had learned that true freedom wasn't about escaping your past, but about embracing it, about using it to create a better future. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that Evelyn would be by his side every step of the way. The pains of the past may not have been erased, but they faded into insignificance against the vibrant hope of the present, a present they had built together. One dream, one sacrifice, one act of love at a time.
Our story is over, and I hope you liked it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. You can write your requests in the comments.